Hey everyone, this is the Detroit Gamesters. This is Arjun, and I'm returning back with my co-host Shamir. It's been a while since we've done our last episode, and you want to apologize for that. We've had,
What's up, everybody?
we've had a little bit of a delay. There's been a lag of news and just some time too. Like we've been a little busy, just with
Yeah,
work life.
I feel like my personal life I've been kind of busy, so I mean, this might pique people's interest. I went to my first writing convention.
Nani?
Yeah, so that was interesting. It's kind of a spur of the moment thing. Like I feel like I've just been busy, like juggling different things, like work, hanging out, trying to do this podcast, talking about games, keeping up with games, and I
Same.
just haven't been able to write as much. And so I was like, you know what, fuck it, let's go to this convention and maybe pitch some agents. So it was interesting. So we're in obviously Detroit Gamester, so Metro Detroit is and I thought it was kind of interesting.
And again, to give context for those that don't remember, I think we said episode one. Shamir likes to write.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah,
dual major.
yeah. So I mean, back in the day, I had big dreams of making it out to Hollywood and wrote a screenplay and it was pretty trash, so that didn't work out. So now I'm just trying to get better at writing my novels. This is an aside, but writing screenplays is hard, bro. Like writing novels is in a way kind of easier, like even though they're longer because you have a lot of space, so you don't have to like really worry about making everything super focused. Like obviously you shouldn't just blab, but with screenplays, man, every page counts. And at least if you're following the formulas by like Save the Cat and like these other people, like by like page 25, this should happen, page 50, this should happen. And so, like, you have to make sure everything is concise. Now, I don't really think Hollywood follows all that, or they're just being so formulaic, they're just trash. But man, writing screenplays was really hard. That's probably the hardest thing I've had to do, like between like poetry, short stories, books. Like that was pretty tough. So right now, I don't think I'm gonna get back into it.
Okay.
So yeah, no, I'm mainly working on novels. I got two done. Halfway through the other one.
Wow, that's two more than George R. Martin's doing right now.
Although his one novel is bigger, his half complete one novel wins a winner. It's probably bigger than
Look,
all of
I'm trying
mine.
to gas you up. Come on.
All right, thanks. But no, so I went. It's kind of an interesting hybrid. Like I feel like a lot of it was just talking about like how to pitch agents and like talk to agents and stuff like that. And I met a couple agents, pitched my stories.
So that was nerve wracking.
Yeah, it was all. The first one I was just absolutely terrible about. My book is like 108,000 words, and I said it was like 10,000, and she was just like so confused.
Like,
It's just like either
is this
he
a poem?
misspoke or like he's just an absolute like idiot who does not know his genre. But no, the first person kind of like tore me apart, and it was really good feedback. And I went to her lecture afterwards, and I was like, oh, and this is something I wanted to also talk at some point in our podcast is just like how important stakes are.
Mm.
Because I think a lot of the problems I have with stories is when you're just like, okay, like why should I care? Like if
Yeah.
this character doesn't do X, Y, and Z, like why should I care? Like how is this world going to change? And then I noticed I was like, man, like that's something I really need to make better in this story. And
And it's one of those things that you get so engrossed in the work you do, and not to say that you lose focus or you go off track, but it's nice for someone to just simplify things and take you right back.
yeah,
Like, what was that original?
yeah, it's
That
just
one.
kind of the basics and like,
Yeah.
and then she was talking a lot about Hunger Games, and she just, I guess that's like her best example, and it's a good point. You can look at like the character's motivations, like okay, why does when Jennifer Lawrence do what she does, and
Right.
all the different characters, but then it's like stakes is like okay, if she doesn't do this, what will happen, and
Yeah.
why should we care? And if there's no like internal stakes, like why she cares, or external stakes, like consequences in the world, then you're just not going to want to watch. You're going to
Yeah.
get bored and disinterested. And I was like, oh my God, that's such a good point. Because, like, for me, like, when I'm trying to, like, win people over with my story ideas, I try and come up with, like, the coolest setting, with, like, the most badass things happening.
Yeah.
But then, like, if there's no stakes, right, then there's no tension. Then people are like, okay, like, this is a cool world, but, like, why should I care? Like, why should I
Which,
stay here, you
which
know?
just to kind of reflect a little bit, like when I watch a movie, and normally most movies on average are like 2 hours, sometimes an hour and a half. I don't feel like that's enough time to introduce some stakes that I would care about. When you have a show that's 8 episodes or times, or a book that's hundreds of pages, like that's a lot more time to develop
Yeah.
those things and can care about.
Yeah, and like so for the Hunger Games, like if she doesn't do something, like she's gonna die, her family's gonna
Sure,
die, her place, everyone in her
but
town is gonna die. So like, there's a lot more stakes. So then people are like, oh my god, like she actually has to figure this shit out. She can't just like sit around and be like, well, what do I want to do with my life? Who am I?
Yeah, true. But I guess like I don't know if you read the books though. Like I feel like maybe if you read like maybe we'll use Harry Potter example because I think you read the Harry Potter books.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the tension and the stakes make more sense in the books versus the movie? Do you think the movie does an accurate job of reflecting
Yeah.
the stakes?
That's a good point. Like I feel like that is sometimes something that can get lost in translation, right? Because books are kind of longer, movies are shorter, and sometimes you don't like have that like grip, like why do I need to watch this,
Right.
And even though, and I don't think every movie or book needs to really have like these crazy stakes, I just think like for most stories it really helps. But for Harry Potter, like, maybe I'll get a lot of crap for this, but I just feel like for the first one, I didn't really notice as much the sense of stakes because, like, to me, I was like, okay, if Harry Potter doesn't do anything,
What happens?
What happens? And like in the
Yeah.
first like half of the movie, like it doesn't become imminently clear, like, okay, like some serious bad stuff will happen, and so like you don't feel as glued. But then for Harry Potter, it's okay because it's such an amazing magical world. Like,
Right.
You're okay with just like hanging out in the setting, learning
True.
the characters.
That's
And I
true.
feel like with Harry Potter, those characters really carry it. Like the three and their friendship, like
Yeah.
that is really what carries that story.
That's an interesting one. So would you say like at least the first movie or even the first book, like the stakes really were they would lose this beautiful friendship, like this connection that they all three had.
I mean, actually, at points, like that's a good, fair point. Like she was, like the person who was like talking to us, she was like, stakes don't always have to be this like universe defining thing. Like everyone will die. Like it can be as simple as like, oh yeah, like our friendship will break, or like the person I love will no longer talk to me. Like even if like Ron, Hermione, and Harry, like if in the end of the book, like if they don't like walk a fine line and like figure their shit out, like like their friendship only almost broke because Ron got jealous, right?
Yeah.
So like, and that, even though like no one's dying, like that hit the core of its readers so much more because they're like, man, this is personal. It matters to the characters, and that makes them feel real, right? And that's what you want, right? It's like an illusion. So, but anyways, it got really sidetracked. But that's partly why I was busy because I was preparing for that, and then I talked to a second agent, and they actually want to see my stuff, so I'm just preparing that and sending it over.
Okay.
So I've been a little busy with that. I mean, honestly, I should have probably sent it like right after because some of the agents were like, okay, I don't know why I'll tell a writer to like send me their chapters and then they get back to me like 6 months later. So I probably need to do it ASAP.
Yeah, you probably
I'm gonna try and get it done in this week. So
okay, that's good.
So anyways, that's that. So that I think that kind of kept me a little busy. So that's why I'm kind of late. But I feel like in a way it kind of worked out because that gives us a lot of stuff to talk about, because there's been some interesting developments the last few days.
Yeah, and it's same for me. Like I went traveling to New York for a couple days, quick trip, but that was on my mind.
Got like 25,000 steps in a day.
Dude, oh my god, the amount of honestly, again, because I'm not from the area, like using the subway system too, just honestly so astonished by like how this was all built and like again, it's just like mind blowing to me at a certain point. Like,
it's so funny. Like the first time I went to New York and I didn't really travel much and I went with my, she wasn't my wife at the time, she was just amazed. Like she was like, "Oh my god, why are you so shocked by everything? Like the transit." And I'm like, "Dude, it just blows my mind that like I don't have to worry about being drunk and driving home.
Literally.
Like I don't have to drive. I don't want to drive through traffic. Like you just get on a subway, go wherever, and everybody's there.
And it's not just get on, so it's go underground.
And people know what to do.
And they know what to do. But you could get so lost because there's so many different. After every stop, you could go on like a bunch of. Dude.
I was an anxious wreck the first time because I was like, oh my god, what if I take the wrong subway?
But so here's the funny part. Google has gotten so good now that it knows exactly which stops, which trains, which exits. It's so good that dude, honestly, Google, phenomenal.
It's made it so much easier.
Yeah.
I will say the worst subway experience, I just so random, but the worst subway experience I ever had was in Paris because like I was like kind of feeling myself. I was like, I went around New York, I I know my way around subways, and then Paris was so stressful, bro, because like I think yeah, exactly. Like other like transit systems in Europe will actually have like something in English, or like even Japan there might be something in English, but like in France, they like purposely are like, screw you, England. We don't want any English anywhere.
You're like,
It's all French. You know, the people who like when I think when you're going to the airport and back, like on that line, like the person will actually say English at the end.
okay.
But every other one, like they just speak in French. They don't speak in
So
any language.
funny.
In like other major countries, they'll speak in other languages.
God.
So, oh man, I took the wrong train there. I got so lost.
They're like, we see who play. Like,
I know, bro. That was so bad.
yeah, that sucked. So yeah, I was doing that plus just work stuff. So I actually haven't had a chance to play. I've been playing. I feel like I've been playing Ninja Gaiden for like 5 months, and I
Oh my
cannot beat this
God,
goddamn
bro.
game. It's
It's
a
always
7 hour
hard to
game, and I'm only halfway through.
Where are you stuck at right now with the game?
So I just yesterday night I beat this water dragon and this boss full of like bones and skull.
Oh
like,
my god,
skull.
bro, you're not even close.
Yeah, I'm about to fight that lichen. Basically, that's a halfway through.
Yeah, that was like probably my favorite boss fight.
Yeah. Oh, okay, really? Lichen?
Yeah. I just thought like the whole setting was so
Yeah,
boss,
it's epic.
you know, it's so epic. I mean, I think there's other boss fights that were like harder, but that one was just so epic, bro. I don't want to ruin it for you.
Okay.
It's have you gone to the Coliseum yet?
No, not yet.
Oh, bro, it's so epic. That's like probably the most epic moment in Ninja Gaiden.
Okay. So I'm excited for that. I'm still liking it. So when I play in these short bursts, I do like that. But because my attention has been so like all over the place, it's hard for me to want to play a game consistently if I'm like have to do so many other things. So I'm glad that I can finally get back into.
But do you feel like if you get away from it for a while and you get back into it, like it's hard to do good in the game because it's like a harder game?
Yeah, sometimes it feels that way. So then what I try to do is like I'm trying to practice all the movesets. And luckily in Ninja Gaiden Black, like they have a tutorial section that shows you all the movesets, and it's not difficult. So it's easy for me to just pick it right back up.
Just use that staff, bro.
Dude, that staff is so OP.
Good. So good.
It's
you
not
pop
even,
people's heads like grapes.
Yeah, it's not even worth upgrading any of the other weapons. Like this weapon is so
I
OP.
started using I used like the big greatsword because it made me feel like, you know, Guts from Berserk.
Yeah.
You know me. But after a while I went back to the dude, that staff is too good.
That staff is too good.
But no, I get what you mean because like I guess that kind of goes into what I've been playing most recently. Like I've been kind of alternating between Oblivion Remastered and Clair Obscur. So you know how hyped I was about Oblivion Remastered when it came out. So yeah, I mean I started playing it right away. You know, day one, and you know I think everyone probably hates. You know, Bethesda fans definitely hate me as a gamer when I play their Bethesda games because I literally just went straight through the main campaign. I did nothing else. I beat the main story in like 7 hours.
Yeah,
which everyone is like, how can you play a Bethesda game and beat the main story in 7 hours? But you know,
it's not that. It's like you're missing out the core experience, the things that made the game great, potentially.
I mean,
the guilds, the all these.
But that's the thing. It's like what brings you into a game, and like for me, like I grew up in like the 360 era where we had these like really epic like Hollywood like movies where it was just like good pacing, blast through a main story, you know, like Halo, Resistance, Killzone, Uncharted, you know, and it just like was like an adrenaline rush until the end. And so for me, like whenever I play like games now, like I just want to blast through the main story because I really want to digest the whole narrative. You know, I feel like if I get lost with all these side quests and like I don't really pay attention to like story beats, like why is this character doing that? You know, I get distracted. So like for me, I just blast through the main story, and then if there's good side content that's good enough, then I'll do it. So like for instance, I know everyone hates on Starfield, but like I actually thought the main story in Starfield was pretty good, and you know, I actually think the main story in Starfield is better than the main story in Oblivion. But people might hate me for that.
Well, I think people more or less are comparing Oblivion to Skyrim, and I think they like Oblivion better than they do Skyrim.
I mean, I was watching Mr. Matty Plays, and I think he likes Skyrim more, but I think when it comes to the campaign, most people will say the Oblivion campaign is better. Yeah. I mean, it's good. It's just, I actually thought Starfield's campaign was pretty good. And then for me with Starfield, like I understand the exploration sucked, but some of their like, you know, side content quests were really good. Like, the Terramorphs or whatever. It was like this alien you had to hunt down that like totally felt like aliens. It was like creepy. That was good enough that I thought it was like having two main stories, you know, and it was so epic. And so after I played that, I was like, okay, like I actually want to do all the other, you know, side quests and, you know, and then I did all the different faction quests. Some of them were not the best, but definitely those two, like the main story and the Terramorphs just were really good. And so when it came to Oblivion, like I blasted through the main story. It was decent, you know. I think it really shows its age, especially near the end, because like the final boss battle, if you could even call it that, was really anticlimactic. And I was like, okay, I thought I was going to fight this massive thing, but I guess not. So, you know, I guess kind of spoilers. So, but I had fun, and the thing is, like with Oblivion, like when I started playing it more, like I actually started to understand why people like Bethesda games. Because for me, I was like, man, I don't want to stop and smell the flowers, like as I'm going and doing what I need to do. Like I don't want to just like get lost in these million different things. But man, when you play Oblivion and you're just like going between one town and another, it just seems like you are truly in a fantasy land. Like you
Yeah,
just feel
that's
like you are lost in this land of endless possibilities. And there's just some way that Bethesda does it in like Oblivion and Skyrim in those games, like really where it just seems like there's endless possibilities.
yeah, and I think like so. There another thing that I think people think find popular in the games like the Coliseum, which I don't
Yeah,
know what you can do within the Coliseum, but that's another thing. Again, it's a side activity.
I
You're not
remember that
really,
from the first time I played it, but I haven't played it in the
but
second version.
it's a pretty big thing, and I think maybe what you're talking about, like kind of lasting through the story, it's like a symptom of like where we are again in our lives. And I think
Yeah.
if you were playing this 20 years ago when you were younger, you might want to explore all
So
this
when I
stuff.
actually played it when I was 20 years ago, that's what I did,
Yeah,
and that's why I was like, oh my God, like Oblivion is such a long game. And I remember when I got near the end of Oblivion, it felt like I had just completed a marathon.
right.
And I did stuff like the Coliseum. And the thing is, like back then I was a kid,
Yeah,
and I didn't know how to like figure stuff like
yeah,
all this
and we
stuff
didn't
out.
have the,
I didn't have the same gaming IQ. I
yeah,
couldn't just look shit up.
yeah,
So
exactly.
like for instance, like if I need to find like a silver sword to kill something like a zombie, like okay, now it takes me like 20 minutes because I
Yeah,
can just look up the easiest way of getting it.
yeah.
Back then, I remember I had to kill a ghost, and I'm like trying my best, and I'm like, why is this ghost not dying? And it was so frustrating. It took me forever to figure out how to kill a ghost in that game when I was a little kid.
That's actually really funny. But then that would also distract you. Probably you probably do a different mission. It's like I don't know how to do
Exactly.
this.
Yeah.
Let me go on a
Yeah.
like and yeah. So
So
that makes sense.
and I
But
guess like I was also comparing it to Avowed in my mind, and I
yeah,
actually
there's
think the
similarities.
two of them like are similar enough but different in part that I'm happy I got both of them, and I actually think there are some things that Avowed definitely does better. Like I had way more fun with the combat, which is not surprising, right? Because obviously Avowed is way newer. But the one thing that I noticed about Oblivion, like, and I guess this is both a pro and con of Avowed, like in Oblivion, like with the way the level design is, like whenever there's like loot or stuff like that, there's not always like a recognizable pattern to where the loot is going to be. And, there might be like some interesting side path that you can take, but at the end of it, you might not necessarily find anything interesting, right? So
Mhm.
you never really know where something is hitting,
Yeah,
right? And then that I think that makes it feel more realistic, right? Because in the real world, it's like not like you're gonna have a treasure chest everywhere.
yeah,
But it doesn't necessarily feel addicting to me in the same way. It just feels like more open and interesting.
yeah,
In Avowed, like it's very obvious like where gear is going to be, and it's always there at like a good speed.
yeah,
So you know that when you go exploring somewhere, like what paths will lead you to some new gear, and every like 3-4 minutes, like it's like a dopamine rush where like like hey, I got
they,
this tier. Oh, here's this box. Am I going to get a purple item? Am I going to get a mythic item? And so like it kind of has that like newer like looter shooter
yeah. So
elements.
it's a more modern version of the game because you can tell they focused on this quality of life things and the core gameplay loop, like what keeps players engaged now. Back when they created Oblivion, I don't think they were thinking about some of
Yeah.
those things, right?
Of course not. Yeah. So I feel like, and also having played Oblivion Remastered, I can say that the one thing that did not age well in that game is the dungeon design.
Right.
Oh my god! Like you'll do a main quest, like you're in the sewers or you're like in some catacombs, and then you finish the quest, and then you can't just fast teleport out of there. You have to literally backtrack and
Jesus.
then get back to the surface, and then you can go, and then it's like oh my god. And because it's old, right, even though they remastered it, like a lot of the walls all look the same, so you're just like going around like the sewers where everything looks the
And so you don't know
same
where you're
and you
going.
don't know where you're going. And
That's funny. Let's talk about that a little bit because like the commonality between that and now what I've been playing in Gaiden is they took this game, they wrapped it around with Unreal Engine with the models and textures, but they're still using the old engine for the
yeah,
gameplay and physics. So I find this interesting that you're in an area where you're like, wait a minute, there's still problems where
but the
I
thing
can't.
is like, and maybe it's because like this was an open world game and it was so hard to make an open world game work on those consoles like the 360 and the the PS3. But honestly, I feel like Ninja Gaiden 2 has held up so
It
shockingly well.
really
Like the
does.
level design is still fantastic.
Yeah,
The combat is fantastic. I
yeah.
think the only
It's
gripe
like
you
the
could say
controls,
is
like
the lack of a lock-on camera.
yeah, yeah,
That's
exactly.
I think that's the only
That's
thing
the
I
only
can say
thing.
is like, okay, this is something they should have really
Yeah,
updated. But other than that, bro, this is almost the exact same game we got.
yeah, and it feels modern.
They just spruced up the menus and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
and it's amazing that that's how advanced that game was
yeah. Back
almost
then,
20 years ago,
yeah,
right? Like that's crazy. And like Oblivion, like it was very advanced for its time, yeah, but like
it's showing its
they
age.
did it is showing its age because I feel like open world games have gone come so far. And maybe this is just my theory, but I feel like the golden era of those linear action adventure games were really around like that generation with the 360 and PS3.
Yeah,
So they really like kind of became they almost perfected themselves, right?
yeah,
And like they advanced so far in that generation because PS2 was great, the PS3 was great, right? And then after that, like we haven't really like had linear action games like that, right? So there hasn't been that much advancement in their level design and
yeah,
combat and things like that. Like, don't get me wrong, like Platinum Games has definitely advanced things, right?
yeah,
But because of that, like that's why it doesn't feel so outdated because it's not like there's been that much substantial growth because it was already really good and near perfect. Open world games, I feel like only now because technology is getting better and better and better, like now they're really coming into themselves.
yeah. And I think so. Here's going to be the interesting thing. Now that we've seen this and they brought it back, how's the new Scrolls game going to
Oh
be?
yeah.
Right? Like, I do think we're going to see huge advancements in their like level design and their dungeon design and their just everything,
Well,
combat gameplay, like
I'm really curious what they're going to do with their graphics though because you remember Demon Souls, like
yeah, like
that looked
that.
so good.
Yeah,
Elden Ring didn't look that good.
yeah.
It was
It
different
was kind
good.
of odd, yeah. Like you took an older game
Yeah.
and you like so that'll be one. But I do think like from a gameplay perspective, they're
Oh,
going to push the
oh,
boundaries there.
absolutely, yeah.
And then another thing,
And I kind of hope. I mean, I don't know. I feel like Bethesda, they kind of take pride in like doing their own thing.
yeah,
Like for instance, like Todd Howard made it a point to say that like we got Starfield shooting as good as it is without really getting that much help.
yeah,
From
yeah,
id, which I mean, yeah, it's a point of pride, but like that's not a point of shame to get
yeah.
like literally the best people at
To
like
help
making
you,
shooters to
yeah.
help you.
It's really
So I say
tough.
that because like if Avowed has like had more time to kind of develop like their action combat, right? And now you're making Elder Scrolls 6 like. It's not like necessarily competition. Like,
Yeah,
bro, just like call them over and be like, hey, like
yeah,
we like some of the things you did, we want to do something different. Like, how can we learn from you guys and make it even better? Like,
yeah.
that's the whole point of all being under the same umbrella.
Yeah, I hope they do stuff like that. And who knows how the collaboration will be, but you have these people, you have direct access to these people to use them. And so another interesting thing to talk about before we get off this topic is what do you think about the fact that they quote unquote shadow dropped it? It was leaked right around the same time Clair Obscur was coming out. I think like this is a weird scenario because just looking at the numbers, I think on Steam, uh, Oblivion sold or had more than 1 million people playing just on Steam alone. Like that's utterly insane. So I bet you through like a lot of people played it through Pass
Oh
and Game
yeah.
Pass and bought it. And then with Clear Obscurity, it had over 700K on Steam. So like it's kind of insane that they
Wait,
both did
it had
well.
that many?
Yeah, and they just announced that Clair Obscur has sold 2 million copies.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's including
amazing.
Game
Yeah.
Pass. So I still
No,
think
I think that's excluding Game Pass. I think that's just 2 million sold.
yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
excluding
yeah.
Game Pass. So it's interesting to know that like they would still drop it. And I get Claire is a multi-platform game, but like you have it, you're marketing it with Game Pass. So it's like give it its time to shine a bit.
I still
think
have to
it's
think
weird.
more about that. Because this was such a strange strategy. Like it's just it's bonkers to me. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't
like
make any sense why Microsoft will do it. And maybe like a year or two from now, like it'll make more sense. And I just kind of get the feeling that like Microsoft and like, I mean, this is totally speculation. It's totally speculation. But I think Satya is basically telling them like, look, like put the pedal to the metal. Like let's go. Like
yeah, I
we're
can see
not
that.
waiting. We don't care if games are falling on top of games. We don't care if like it hurts. This game hurts that game. We're doing the pedal to the metal. We're just gonna blast out so many games that we're gonna change the narrative, and everyone is gonna be too busy playing games to talk shit. Because Other than that, I don't get it, because
Yeah.
it's just been like, oh man, it's been like a rocket ship. It's just like boom, 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 boom. Like it's not even like I'm an Xbox fanboy, but it's like a lot of what we end up talking on every game, like talk show, is Xbox.
Yeah.
Because
They have
they're
so
really
much going on.
cranking stuff out. And I guess maybe it's because they have 30 freaking studios, 30 plus studios. But anyways, like
I mean,
it's such a strange strategy.
yeah, what I will say is Satya blasting games out and cranking one out. Pause. No Diddy, that was kind of gay, but yeah.
Arjun,
What?
bro. You can't be cracking jokes like this.
But what I will say is you're right. I do foresee based on is the way he's talked to the public now about games and him being so involved with it is yeah. I don't think not that they don't care. They just want to put out whatever they can, and they'll let the consumers decide what they want. And if they can afford more than one game, they will. And if they can't, they can't.
Yeah.
So his philosophy is like give as much content and
Yeah.
digest it as you please.
It's almost like Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix just does not care. Like I feel like they just whatever, they'll just throw it on there because they know that it's going to stay on there,
Right.
and people will just eventually get around
Exactly.
to watching it, or in this case, playing it. So, but people are saying like, oh, it had a Barbenheimer effect. Like, I don't know, because like how would like I feel like with Barbenheimer, it was like very obvious that these two truly feel themselves, because that's all everybody was talking about. For this, like, I don't know. I really don't know how these two would have done independently, because I feel like they're both strong enough that they would have definitely been able to like stand on their own.
Yeah, and sustain for a while, but.
And I wonder if Microsoft was like, okay, we really wanted this to come out last year, with the Oblivion remaster. They missed their date, and then now
I can see that.
And now they're like, we really want to change the narrative. Whatever, we'll just throw Oblivion out there.
Again, sucks that it was spoiled, that it was leaked, that this
Yeah.
thing was coming out. And I think it would have been even crazier if we just the day before we're like, oh my god. But I kind of want to transition out to talk about Claire, because I think this is a good point to do that, because I want to say, like, again, I haven't played the game yet, but based on gameplay videos and people talking about it, I think it looks cool. It reminds me of Final Fantasy.
Oh yeah.
And just to give some context to people that are listening right now, apparently a lot of the team, and it's a small team, are made up of junior developers from basically Ubisoft, and they found people on Reddit. They found random people online to help with music, art. So it was just a very, I don't want to say like naive.
Sounds like a
group.
grassroots type of thing.
It is grassroots, but they were very young developers, and the fact that they all came together to put this together, and it took them years to do it, and be successful. Like, just kudos to that team. So like, I just want to like start with that. It's like, what a great accomplishment.
Yeah. So I mean, Clair Obscur, I definitely have really sunk my teeth into it, and I really am liking it.
How many hours are you in?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I beat the Geppetto Forest, if anyone knows where that's at. So I think that's like the second main boss. But like, I got kind of lost in like, going in this direction and tweaking my gear and stuff like that. I guess like maybe this is cliche to say. I really hate being that guy who's like nostalgia driven and like back in my days. But after I probably got 1 hour into Clair Obscur, like my first thought was like, man, they don't make them like this anymore. We don't get these like, like not just amazing settings, but just like well written games that truly feel like movies. Like, I think like the only one who's really given me that feeling for a while has been Sony, right? Like, and specifically, I have to say like God of War and Last of Us, for as much hate as it gets, like you really feel like immersed in like this like movie like thing. And for this game, like as soon as I started playing, I'm like, oh my god, this is like good writing, good characters, fascinating story premise, like good pacing, like high stakes, like the tension is there. Like I'm actually like, it's funny at times, like, bro, these were like the banger games that we used to get out on the 360 and PS3, right. And like we just took them for granted. Yeah. And it's like something changed where like it used to be just like games that were both like high quality, like amazing story and fun. That was like PS3 and 360 to me. And then when it transitioned to PS4, it just felt like all we were doing was making HBO. And I guess maybe I sound like a little like paradoxical here, because I do think that like, Clair Obscur isn't exactly the same as like God of War or Last of Us, because the games are like fun, but like the games in a way, like Sony games have gravitated less away from like let's just have pure fun and have a good story to now let's just have these like HBO type releases. You know?
I mean, so again, just a couple caveats here. One is from what I've heard, and I could be wrong, is only the first couple hours of the game does it have those high fidelity pre-rendered cutscenes, and then
Oh.
everything after that is in engine. So it's not like what you're seeing maybe in the first couple hours might not be the indicative of the entire game. So that could change.
I mean, for me, like, yeah, the cutscenes for sure, but it's just, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything away, but like after I played like the first hour, bro, like I was with like, I was with my wife, and like, bro, after like within the first hour, I had to put the game away. Like, it made me emotional,
Yeah.
and I was just like, oh my god, what is this game?
But again, I'm what I'm saying is it can change because again, that's not like that
Yeah.
throughout the entire game. Second, I've had friends now that aren't into RPGs at all reach out to me and say, "Hey, what's this game? Have you heard of it?" Kind of crazy because I'm like, how are you hearing about this? And it's spreading quickly, so I think this game is gonna do even better. It's gonna have long
I
legs.
hope so.
But three, the other thing I was gonna say about this game was, darn, I'm already free. Oh, this is one of the highest rated games ever on Metacritic.
Yeah.
Like this is kind of insane. Like so from
I
critics,
think I was reading that, like, yeah,
like, for a 92 and user scores a 9.7.
I think it might be higher. I think I was just reading an article that it is actually the highest rated game based off users' scores.
Yeah, and it's a 9.7. So like,
That's insane.
and the fact that like that's the highest ever, like from user scores, but and they kind of almost correlate with critics. Like the consensus is pretty much similar, and so
I mean, the thing is, like, and I feel like, again, cliche to say, but I feel like this is the Baldur's Gate 3 of this year. Like, I think it's only going to get like bigger and bigger. It's going to keep snowballing, and it's really going to revitalize turn-based RPGs. Like, we're definitely going to see a lot more, and I would love to see some Western turn-based RPGs. You know, like that sounds amazing. You know, but man, like. You gotta play this game. Like, I know I tell you a lot of times, like, you gotta play this game, but man, this is a special game.
Yeah, because most of your recommendations are horrible. No, I'm just kidding. No, but for sure, this is next on my list. I think what I'm going to do is once I beat Ninja Gaiden, I'm gonna play Doom first and then this. So I think that's kind of gonna be my backlog.
And just to put it into perspective, like, you know how much I love Doom, right? Like, God, I love Doom, and I was so excited for the next Doom. But honestly, I'm so into this game. I think I might not touch Doom for some time.
That's fine.
Like,
that's
I think
fair.
I'm really
give it the time it deserves. Because
I actually even want to do the side quest. Like, I just want to like sink my teeth into this.
Look, we don't get games like this often. We have very limited time as adults. Enjoy the games for what they are and don't rush them. So if you find a game that you find like this is amazing and it stands out like a gem compared to other things that are like that you expect to be good, play it through completion, beat it 100%. Do whatever you got to do because you'll remember these games. And
I mean, who knows? This might even end up in like my top 10. Like,
it could.
Because I don't know about you. Well, maybe, kind of switching gears a little bit. This might be fun. What is your favorite turn-based RPG?
Turn-based RPG. Oof. Well, I have to think about this.
I mean, I had my first answer, but now I might have to revise it.
I mean, Pokemon's up there for me, but it's degraded over time.
I guess you can call Pokemon a turn-based RPG, but I never think of it that way.
God, what else?
So for me,
I have to think about it.
Well, maybe I can answer and you can think about it. So originally, I was going to say Lost Odyssey. I really love Lost Odyssey.
It's a good game, man.
And that actually,
it's going to be similar vibes.
Yeah, and I think with Lost Odyssey too, there was a timing mechanic as well.
Okay. Where you can do like the quick time events, you're saying? Yeah, the quick time events, and it helped you do more damage, if I'm remembering. But it wasn't like a blocking type thing. Well, just to give some people more context, in this game you can parry, I think, and dodge while even doing turn-based content.
Yeah, and it's actually, maybe I just suck, but the parrying is hard.
Is it?
Like, you really have to learn the enemies and learn their parries and their timing. But no, I really love Lost Odyssey. I love the story. Just the premise, the action was good. For the time, the graphics were fantastic. I thought that was a super underrated game. So I love that. And then, I love the old Star Oceans.
Dude.
Oh, those are so good.
So
like Star Ocean 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Oh,
so not to go off on a side tangent, but I think they just remade Star Ocean on the Switch. There was like a remake a couple years ago. I picked it up and it looks great because it looks like a 2D HD remake or something. And I'm like, damn, this looks good. Like, I'm going to play this.
I have already lost so much of my life to those Star Ocean games. As soon as I saw that was coming back, I was like,
best games to play on a hacked PSP. Oh,
I mean, I don't know if I can,
admit,
say I did anything like that, but from what I've heard, that was pretty boss.
So to kind of maybe transition topic. So I think Clair Obscur is good, and you mentioned one thing, which specifically was, could this be in the top 10 of my games, or my top 10 games ever of all time? I want to talk about a game that I thought was going to be one of the best games of the year, GTA 6, because we just found out it's been delayed. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit here. So
yeah, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, interesting enough. Rockstar said they're delaying it to May 26, 2026. They're saying they need more time just to, I think, polish, and they don't want to crunch. And on top of that, they randomly dropped a trailer a week after the fact. So did you see the new trailer?
I did. Oh my god.
So first of all,
everyone's talking about how thick and juicy it is.
Yeah, a lot of ad shots of Lucia, like a lot of ad
They
shots.
know their audience.
Yeah, but dude, holy shit! So they also said after the fact that first of all, there's gonna be 6 explorable areas, and I don't remember all of them.
6. Oh my god.
So yeah, 6.
Wasn't there like 3?
Yeah,
like the last
in
one.
The previous 3. Yeah. So this is huge. On top of it, all of it was in engine on a PS5 base model.
Insane,
and it looks phenomenal.
Did you watch a Digital Foundry video about it?
I still haven't yet.
I just saw like little parts of it. I was like skipping through it, and when they were saying it, they were like, "Yeah, this is like there's some artifacts, there's some problems here," which is promising because then it looks like it's actually running in the game.
Yeah,
and they pointed out that like there's definitely upscaling here. Like you can see where it's going down, but man, that game looks fantastic. And if that's like PS5, I mean PS5 Pro is going to look fantastic. Yeah. And then eventually, when it comes out on PC,
is going to look better. And I'm not saying this is going to be feasible, but maybe one day, 5 years from now, they get it running on the Switch too. You never know.
Yeah, maybe. But now that I think about it, like if that is coming out in 2026, and we're thinking the new consoles are coming out in 2027, what in the world? Dude, are we going to have another? Oh my god, they're repeating what they did with GTA 5.
Yeah, and they'll do 3 generations of releases. Like insane, utterly insane. It's gonna be stupid. And let's tie another topic into this, which I think is not ridiculous, but I think may upset a lot of people, is price hikes for a current generation console. So we're 5 years into the current generation, and right now, maybe because of tariffs, maybe because of other reasons, the Xbox is getting a price hike to $599. So this is the first time ever where a console 5 years into the generation has gone up, not down.
Don't forget the Quest 2.
Well, a piece of shit console. But besides the Quest 2, let's not include that. And I'm so used to, over the last 20 years, getting a console with a slimmer version, some price reduction, etc. So Nintendo Switch was the first console I saw that just didn't go up or down, just remained the same. Yeah. But this is the first time, an Xbox Series X 600, and the 2 terabyte model is more
730, yeah.
Which is more than the PS5 Pro.
Crazy.
Utterly insane.
Dude, I feel like Microsoft at this point, they're, it almost makes me laugh. They're like, we have read you internet trollers, you keyboard warriors, get your pitchforks, let's go. We want all the smoke. Let's go.
And this hold on.
They are just throwing off their gloves. They're like, bro, we're about to bare knuckle you guys. Let's go, bro.
So here's the funny part. You got so much goodwill from Xbox releasing all these fucking games. All these goddamn games. And then they go, oh yeah, but you're going to pay an extra $10, $80. You're going to have to pay more money for a console. Bro, I literally just got an Xbox Series X last year for $350. And now you're telling me to pay $600 or $700.
That's so funny. But you know what? I feel like Microsoft does the whole like good, bad, good sandwich like better than anyone else.
They really
do. Being an Xbox fan is like being in a relationship with the most psychotic girlfriend you can imagine, bro. Like she just back and forth. It's like, all right, like everyone's giving hope. All of a sudden, you get all these banger games, like, and I feel like when you have good games, they kind of like float everything up, you know. So like, Avowed came out, okay. People weren't feeling it that much. I loved it. I give it a 9 out of 10, in my mind. But whatever. There's haters.
Would you call that an $80 game?
I'd pay $80 for it.
For Avowed.
But,
You would.
I would. But would most people? No. I mean, I think that's a $60 game. But I would pay $80 because, I paid extra money to play it 5 days early.
Okay.
Because that's how much I was looking forward to it. But, no, I don't think it's worth $80. I think based off of people's expectations on the amount of content and value they should get for a $60 game, which has changed over time. I don't think people are going to think a game like that is worth $80. But, anyways.
Well, look at the best-selling games in the last year. Some of them were $30 and $40 and $50. Yeah. Clair Obscur and I forgot, it was like $40, and then the other game I forgot, but like $50.
But don't forget Last of Us Part 2, Remake 3,
fuck out of here.
Now with even more HD graphics.
God.
They're still selling those things at full price.
By the way, people, for those who don't know, they're packaging Last of Us Part 1 and 2 for $115.
Bro,
this game,
take my money right now.
5 years old.
Take my money right now.
Like, insane.
But, I mean, in the end of the day, what you think is worth it is subjective, right? Like, I can kind of say, based off of what most people say, I don't think they would think a game like that is worth $80. I loved it. I would pay 80 for it. At the same time, like everyone gassed up Baldur's Gate 3. I didn't have that great of a time with it. I think I wasted my money on it, but the vast majority of people would say, "Oh my god, I'd pay $100 for that." That was
Sure.
amazing. So,
Sure.
but anyways, the point I was trying to get at, what Microsoft does so good, it's like, they hit us with Avowed, people are feeling it a little bit, then they hit us with South of Midnight, people are like, okay, it's maybe a 7 out of 10 game, I'm disappointed, and then all of a sudden they drop, Oblivion remastered. Oh my God! Now we love Microsoft, we love Bethesda, and all of a sudden all of their other games look better in hindsight now. And then all of a sudden we know Clair Obscur is coming out. Oh, I get this on Game Pass as well, and I get Doom, and I get Tony Hawk coming out.
Sure.
Everyone's so happy. Then they hit us with the price hike, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, what in the world?"
Yeah.
But then it's like I can't even be that angry at Microsoft because I'm also very happy. And then right afterwards, they hit us with the Gears of War news, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's like
but see,
pulling me in every direction.
So this is the funny part. Like that's considered first party, and they seem to be adopting a variable price strategy, which is what Nintendo's doing. So Nintendo just announced with their Switch 2 that most games will probably be 80, but not all of them. And then you get Gears of War Reloaded, which is $39.99, and it's free for those that already have the Ultimate Edition on Xbox. So this is more for like the PC and PlayStation crowd, right? Yeah. Which is interesting enough. They could have charged $70 or $80 for that,
Yeah.
But I'm happy they didn't. But the only thing I'm disappointed about, even though it looks with all the changes they're doing, obviously 7.1, Dolby Atmos, 120 FPS multiplayer, 60 FPS campaign, and no loading screens. But
I like those loading screen stuff.
Yeah, I actually do like the funny enough, I do like those loading screens.
Great loading screens, but anyways.
But it doesn't include Gears 2 and 3.
I know.
Which is very disappointing.
But it's because we got hyped up on the leaks, we're on that hopium.
I agree.
And we were thinking we were going to get all three, and then we're going to look as good as the Ultimate Edition.
So here's the funny part, because Mr. Incognito, who podcasts with Mr. Matty Plays on a weekly basis, he said he had it on good authority, and by the way, he's a very well-known, credible leaker, that it was the Gears collection, 1, 2, and 3, and it wasn't multiplayer. So someone from I bet you an official source, from Xbox, was leaking fake information, most likely to everyone.
Oh.
And
they pivoted.
But how would they pivot that quick? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, instead of having all three games in one browser, they're going to give us all piecemeal.
So you think they're already working on 2 and 3?
I think it would be stupid for Microsoft not to release Gears of War 2 and 3. I don't see a world where in the next 5 years they do not release a Gears of War 2 remastered.
Yeah,
I think after they see the success of Oblivion, how much everyone is clamoring for Fallout, and the thing is, I think that just maybe this is a blanket statement for Americans in general. If you give us enough time away from the things we love, then we'll just be like, oh yeah, just give it to me all over again.
Yeah.
I was so annoyed at Star Wars. And now I'm hearing good news about Andor, and I'm like,
and you're like, do I go back? That's how they get you. That's how they get you.
Okay, and I feel like it's the same. Microsoft is noticing that, everyone had a blast with Gears and Halo, then everyone had even more fun making fun of Gears and Halo, and now people don't even want to talk about Gears and Halo, right? And so now the cycle restarts.
It's been a while, so I will say this, I miss Gears. It's been over 7 years or 6 years since I played the DLC expansion for Gears 5. I mean, interesting enough, I will play it not for the story, even though the improvements look good. Maybe I will. It's a short campaign, but I really want to play multiplayer. I think playing crossplay with PlayStation PC is going to be great. There's going to be a bunch of noobs to Nash and just wall bounce on, and I'm definitely into that. Because right now the online multiplayer is dead. And what I will say is this is interesting enough. They said I think August 26th is the release date. There's now multiple games coming out at the end of August, and I don't know if it's a coincidence. You got Gears of War Reloaded. You got Metal Gear Solid Delta. You got Shinobi, and then you got there was one other big prominent game which I'm forgetting. So I don't know why everyone's doing end of August.
Well, I think everyone thought that Grand Theft Auto 5 was going to come out in October, or September, and then they were probably thinking, oh my God, what if we get another Call of Duty in November? How are we going to deal with this? So then they were all thinking, let's do August and September.
You're right. So,
wasn't Borderlands and Marathon? Aren't they both coming out that same month?
Yeah, as well. Well, Borderlands September 12th got pulled up. Marathon around the same time, September. It would be nice if some of those games get pulled up to early summer, next month.
Yeah, I think some of these dates are going to move, especially if Grand Theft Auto 6 has moved.
Been delayed, yeah.
Oh, man, absolutely. People are going to start moving their dates around.
Or if Mafia, they haven't even released a date for Mafia.
Yeah, that's coming out.
So they have not a state of play, but they have a deep dive, I think, next week for it. It'd be nice if it came out in June or July. They'd fill the void. There's really nothing coming out in those months besides Nintendo Switch games. I feel like that would be a nice.
Well, that makes sense because I think everyone's trying to avoid the Switch release,
Yeah.
and then they were trying to avoid Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, that's a good point.
And the potential,
That's a good point.
and I think that's why everyone is just slamming into those months. And now we're actually going to get it a little more spread out. I wonder if that's why, like, March, April, May have been. I mean, especially like April, May have been kind of busy.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to avoid those two big dates.
Yeah, I agree.
Another
thing I will say is I think Gears is big enough that it will sell multiple. I will say millions of copies on PlayStation, and not like 5-10, but like I can see 1 or 2 millions easily.
Yeah, I think people sleep on how popular Gears is. Like, I know multiple people who are massive Sony fanboys, and they talk smack about Xbox, but they'll tell you like, "Oh yeah, man, I remember playing Gears back in the day, bro. That was fun." Man. And the thing is, it's because like even after all this time, there's truly nothing that captures Gears. There's nothing that has that same third person action, over the top, like masculine attitude, like blood, guts, like Doom, you can kind of argue is kind of like Gears, but that's first person.
And they're multiplayer.
Warhammer kind of had that feel, but that's the closest we've gone, I think, in all that time. And what other great third person shooting game is there with a good multiplayer?
100% nothing.
It's literally just Gears.
It's just Gears. It's so unique, and whatever they created at the time was like lightning in a bottle, and again, it's unparalleled till now.
And no one's really been able to compete with Gears. All this time, like Mass Effect 3 had a pretty good combat system. They tried to do some multiplayer stuff, but Gears was so good at what they did, and then they had Horde mode, Beast mode, all those things. Everyone copied the Horde mode, but no one tried to go toe to toe.
Especially when it's been this silent for years and you still couldn't release a product.
And if you think about it, I think that's why Xbox fanboys are so big on Halo and Gears, because at that time frame, there was no competition. There was no third person game that was trying to be like Gears and succeeded. There was no first person game that was trying to be like Halo and succeeded. Yeah. Right?
Well, it also speaks to my childhood, because for me it's nostalgic, where I was in middle school and high school. I'd come home every day. It was religion to me. I'd play Gears for I'd eat dinner, and I'd play Gears for 2 to 4 hours a night. And I would then sometimes hang out with my friends over the weekend and eat, get food, and play the game over and over again. And Halo. And it's just it just reminds me of a time where that game is now associated with the best moments of my life.
I mean, that's the nostalgia, man.
That's the nostalgia.
That's the opium. And, for me with Gears, I probably won't play this campaign. And it's solely because back when I was young, we didn't have things like Game Pass. My parents didn't buy me that many games. So I would get a game and I would play that campaign like crazy.
Yeah, so you're tired out.
Specifically, I played the Halo 1 and 2 campaign so many times. Played Halo 3 a lot too, the campaign, but really I just played the 1 and 2 campaign like crazy. And Gears 1 campaign, I played that so many times. I probably remember every freaking room and who's going to spawn when. It's just absurd.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I'm I really don't want to replay it because I've played it so much. I really want to replay 2. And even 3, but really, Gears of War 2, I want to replay that so bad.
Yeah, I do. 2 and 3 I want to play so bad, especially 2. But what I will say is this game, I think this remake or remaster has been made in conjunction with Coalition and 2 other studios. So it'll be interesting to see what they take from this and put in Gears E-Day, the new one coming out next year. And
I don't know if you heard, but you know how they were talking about people who can fly or whatever? They have a secret Xbox game?
That was this.
Yeah. So I wonder, does that mean that if they're really leading the charge, that Gears 6 is farther along in development than we think?
Gears 6?
Yeah, Gears 6.
Okay.
A Gears 6, a sequel to Gears 5.
So do you think that they'll do Gears E-Day and a year later Gears 6?
I don't think it'll be a year. I mean, if that's Microsoft's strategy, then that's really smart. If they were planning on doing Gears E-Day followed by Gears 6, and they're planning on doing Halo 1, remake, which is what I'm speculating, right? And then followed by Halo Infinite 2, again, speculation. That's smart to keep the hype train going, but I don't think they'll do that. I think game development takes too long. Even if they wanted to do that, I think they would space it by 2 years just because it takes a while. But if you think about it, if it's been how many years? 5 years since Gears 5? 6 years since Gears 5. And if, they have a pretty big studio, right? And I know Rob left, but still they have pretty talented people out there. And if they're not even doing the primary development on Gears E-Day, and, it didn't take them that long to make Gears 5. They made it pretty fast. They made it in 3-4 years. to me, unless they just scrapped Gear 6 like a million
Yeah, they
times,
rebooted or
they
something.
have to be fairly far along.
I would agree with that. Like this remake probably was a small team dedicated to
Yeah.
it with the other support studios, and then you split your time between E-Day and a sequel. And I think okay, what I want to say is like based on what they're doing with this remake, I think they need to go back to the basics in terms of the multiplayer. That's like the actual. While the story is good, I think it's associated with this multiplayer. So if you're gonna do a new game like E-Day or Six, the multiplayer should be reminiscent of that. You don't
Yeah.
need it to be an esports or competitive like
Yeah.
game. You just need it to be fun.
Yeah, you just, I mean, honestly, even if you do a nostalgia play that's just a little bit more advanced, like
Yeah.
people will soak that up because they haven't been able to play anything like that in a long time,
Yeah.
you know? And, you know, and I guess this is kind of related, but, you know, as an Xbox fanboy, like for a long time, it really bothered me that like the console was dying and this and that. And, you know, for me, I think I've like gotten my peace with it. You know, for a while it bothered me for like a number of reasons. Like, one, I realized that Xbox is dead. You know, like Xbox has resurrected itself because Xbox should have died, and it did die in like 2000 whatever 17, 2015.
15,
If Satya is going to you know Phil and basically saying like we're gonna pull the plug, you
Yeah,
know,
that's
and then
dead at
Phil
that
is
point.
like, listen to this crazy idea I have, you know, honestly, it should have died then,
Yeah.
right? Based off the numbers, like Halo, Gears, all those things, you know, and the fact that as a fan of those franchises, I'm still getting those games, and you know, I'm still getting something. To me, I that's a miracle. You know,
Yeah.
that's amazing because like it could have went the way of not just Sega, but like so many other game
I mean,
companies,
they
right?
spent half their war chest to resuscitate the whole thing. So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're right. It could have. It was either do or die. Like,
And so for me, I'm like, you know, the fact that Microsoft is still a player in the game, that's huge, you know.
Yeah.
And so really, like, we shouldn't even be getting new Halo and Gears games, regardless of what their quality is like. You know, it's a surprise that they are. So that's one thing. And then
you know,
I
it
think,
makes me so jealous that we haven't gotten a Resistance game
oh
again.
god, don't even get me started about that.
I
I need
don't-
a new Resistance game and a new Killzone. And sorry, I feel like I have ADHD right now. I'm just going everywhere. But have you seen those clips when they compare? I don't know who is doing this and why I'm getting targeted with this. They show Metroid Dread, the two, not Metroid Dread 2, Metroid Prime 4, and they compare the gameplay of that to Killzone 2.
Okay.
And then they're like, oh man, look at how crappy games are. You know, we haven't even advanced past Killzone 2. And I'm like, all right, cool your jets,
funny.
guys.
It's actually kind of fun.
But no, I say like as an Xbox fanboy, like yeah, the death of the console really bothered me.
Yeah.
But then I realized like now I'm more loyal to the franchises. Like especially when now these franchises are exiting the game world and they're
Mhm.
even going into movies and television and stuff like that. Like, you know, now I'm more loyal to like Gears as a franchise, Halo as a franchise, you know, or Fable as a franchise,
Right.
you know, Perfect Dark as a franchise, not necessarily to like the box where that franchise lives. And I say that because sometimes what's best for the franchise is not what's necessarily best for the parent company or even for the console, right?
Yeah.
Like to me, like objectively, what's best for the Gears franchise is releasing, you know, this remastered version on the PS5, right? Because now for the first time in such a long time, like Gears is hot, you know, like
Yeah.
people are talking about it, they're curious, they're interested. I mean, yeah, like don't get me wrong, when Gears E-Day showed off its trailer, oh man, like people were hyped, yeah, but from what I was hearing, like even, you know, the amount of people who are playing Gears 2, you know, like the original version, you know, that's gone way up, you know, across the board, there's a new enthusiasm. And so for me, like if you're getting a bunch of new players in and now we don't have to worry about like, you know, Microsoft, Sony fanboys fighting it all over what's best and everyone's just playing it. I think that's objectively better for the Gears franchise because, you know, for a while I wasn't sure if the Gears franchise would continue, you know?
Yeah, I honestly did. That's why I'm so upset that we're not getting even a remaster of fucking the Resistance story campaign. Like, fuck, fine. I love the multiplayer, but fuck the multiplayer. Just remaster the fucking stories or a Killzone. Like, you can't tell me that as Sony, they've so prioritized all these new IPs. They're like, we can't go back. Yeah, you can. Microsoft is doing it. Nintendo's doing it. Nintendo has the lineage of constantly remastering old games and making new ones on top of it, even if they don't sell well. So, like, I don't understand with Sony. They're always so risk averse to like taking old IP and nostalgia and saying, yeah, this is we know it's not gonna sell it. Like, dude, how do you know that? Like, I don't know. I just feel like I wish Sony would take more risks. And maybe you can say they're taking risks by making new IP, but in my opinion, they're being safe because most of those new IP were selling a lot of copies compared to their older franchises. So
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange business tactic. I really don't understand why Sony doesn't go back into like their
Yeah.
beloved collection.
There's so
Not
many
just
games.
especially for me, Resistance and Killzone is one where I just cannot comprehend it.
Yeah, I literally cannot comprehend that.
But
Well, and you're funny.
even like Jackson Daxter, like why?
Well,
Like Ratchet and
yeah.
Clank is still alive.
So why not Jack and Daxter? Well, so funny thing is, what was the company we just talked about that's helping make Gears Eating?
Oh, People Can Fly.
They're also now working with Sony on a IP, like an existing IP, and they haven't announced what game it is. And I hope to God it's
Siphon Filter.
well, it's probably going to be a shooter because they're experts in that. It's either Siphon, Resistance, or Killzone, and I hope it's Resistance.
I feel like it's going to be Siphon Filter.
But like, if you look at the three, out of all three, why Siphon? Why do Siphon?
Because if I'm remembering, wasn't Siphon Filter, wasn't that third person?
It was third person, and it was made by the people who made Days Gone.
Look, I feel like in their logic, they're gonna say, okay, like people aren't playing, story based first person shooters, and the first person genre, I think, and I kind of see this too. I feel like the first person shooter genre has really been evolving quickly. It's like by the time you get on the battle royale train, either you release a half baked game or now we're already moving on to extraction shooters. And so I think especially Sony, like they're not about that. They don't want to bring Killzone back and invest heavily in their multiplayer. And by that time that multiplayer comes out, who knows if that's even the fad?
Yeah, the landscape.
And I feel like with Helldivers 2, like that was the exception because they really didn't expect a ton.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone did. And that was just like, oh my god, this blew up, right? And so I think because of that, like I think their calculations are a little bit more careful about Killzone and Resistance, which sucks. I would love to have them back. And for whatever reason, like Sony just does not do AA games. Like they really want to make every game into like a
Huge,
AAA like blockbuster hit, and then they always want to release 2 every year. Like that's their cadence.
Unfortunate.
And
I mean, I look at this too. Like Ted Price, who just announced his retirement from Insomniac, the studio head, basically said we pitched a Resistance 4 to Sony. We got shot down. We had an idea for the story, and they would have continued it. But they're like, because the other ones didn't sell well, we just were shot down. And then the Days Gone developers, what's the studio's name?
Sony Bend.
Sony Bend.
No, is it Sony Bend?
Yeah, Sony Bend. They pitched a open world Resistance game, and they also got shot down. That's when they did.
I don't know why they don't like Resistance. Like, did Resistance just not do good numbers for them?
Well, Resistance 3 out of all three of them sold the worst. They only sold like 1.5 million copies. The other two were like 2 to 4 million each. But it's not horrible.
That's actually way worse than I would have thought.
Yeah, it's worse than I thought too. But still, like that genre is like still like Returnal to me doesn't fill that itch.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, this goes back to what we were talking about with stakes. Like, like when we were talking about stakes, like, those old alien invasion video games, like that's such a primal thing, like we have to survive the alien apocalypse, and we used to get a lot of those, not even in Hollywood and even, in video games. And like, you just don't see that as much anymore, it was just kind of sad. I feel like that was so popular in the 2000s and, maybe people just got sick of it and now they're like moved on to other stuff, and I'm sure it'll come back, but
like, if you're, again, it's so hard to just pivot now. Look at Sony taking risks with Bungie, with and 2 or 3 other games. Was it Fair Games and then Concord and all these things? And if those are failing, like why would they want to go back to some of their older, and who knows? Maybe they do it. I don't know. Maybe it ends up being more successful. But it's gonna be hard to market. I don't know.
Oh, this is so random, but I just heard about this. I think the news broke today. Did you hear about the new Sony studio? Okay, I guess I don't know if it's actually a new. You can call it a new Sony studio, but yeah, I just pulled up the article. PlayStation has a new internal studio spun out from Bungie, so it's called Team LFG.
Okay, but is this the one making Gummy Bears, or is this the new one that's making that prototype game?
Wait, what do you mean Gummy Bears?
So there's another game being made by Bungie it's a codenamed Gummy Bears, and then there's another team they spun off. They announced this last year.
I think this would be the team-based game. I don't know, because all I see online is it's their first project is a team-based action game that draws on fighting games, platformers, MOBAs, life sims, and frog-type games.
Okay, so this was the second team. So basically, they took a group of I think it was a very small team of 10 or 20 people, and they spun that up because they were working on a prototype when they acquired Bungie, and they saw enough potential in there that they made it their own studio. So it's not a beefed up studio, and I wonder if they're going to say, "Hey, you create the prototype, and then we'll outsource the rest of the work."
It's weird that they maybe, I don't know if they're just trying to get more attention by calling it a new internal studio, but I mean, is that not very similar to what like Grounded was?
Exactly.
Right?
The same thing.
It's just like a small team that's working,
But they see the difference here is they plucked them out because they were downscaling Bungie at the time and firing a bunch of people last year. So they just took them out and said, we want to spin you off. And maybe because they weren't confident in leadership or something like that.
Yeah, kind of protect them from like the rest of the mess that is Bungie.
Yeah. So that's interesting though, that now that they officially announced like, okay, this is the inspiration they're taking from for their game, but who knows when that'll actually come out.
So I guess like since we're talking about Bungie, what did you think about that new Destiny trailer? I thought Destiny was done. I didn't realize they were really gonna still go at it.
This is another thing Sony announced last year when they were doing the changes, is they're still going to do 2 expansions a year, or roughly 2 expansions every year. Now, is this actually officially a cross collaboration with Star Wars? Because they have what looks like
one. It seems really legitimate, honestly. Like the masks and stuff look really like it.
Yeah, so if you go to the front page of the PlayStation Store, you got one of the characters holding a lightsaber, and then you got another one that has like a gun, so it looks like Han Solo. So I think I don't know if this is an official Star Wars cross collab. I don't know.
I mean, to me, it didn't seem like it was an official collab, but then the items were so Star Wars. I was like, how can you be this Star Wars? Without it actually being an official collab.
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought it was interesting. I don't know if they showed off gameplay or not. I think they did very little. Honestly, like, every time I see something new from Destiny, I'm like, I want to play it, but how do I get it back into it? Because I don't think you can just start with
I mean, I think I'm kind of done with Destiny for now. Like, I thought about playing the last expansion because I got good reviews, but, I don't know. I just feel like I've spent so much time with Destiny, and every time you leave it for a while and you get back into it, like it just feels like too much of a mountain to climb, And I mean, the trailer actually to me looked better than I expected. Now again, my bar was so low because I expected nothing, and so the fact that it seemed like there was new guns that looked interesting, a bit of a story, I was like, okay, like I guess Destiny is not dead. But I don't think I'm going to get back into Destiny 2.
That or even Marathon, just to, again, side tangent, but like I've been hearing now people playing the closed alpha, and they are saying it's unique enough that they don't think there will be mass appeal for the game. And it's interesting, they didn't do an official state of play for it. And I think I'm starting to understand why. It's like, it's not a hardcore game, but it's not for the faint of heart. It's like,
I think you were right. I think I was wrong. Like when I was saying 800, what did I say, 800 something? Oh my god, no way. It's gonna be like 100, 120. It's gonna. I think it's gonna be successful, but it's not gonna be this just massive thing. I think it's gonna be like an addition to the sandbox of different games, like not like the biggest leader.
And they'll find a way to monetize it. So over the long period or a long time, they'll have a long legs to make.
I mean, I think like the way they see it is like, what's the upshot? Like, could this become like Fortnite,
that's exactly
of the extraction genre
last 10 years.
And then they're like, okay, like that's the upside, that's pretty good. Okay, like what's worst case scenario, And I don't think they think it's going to like completely fizzle out and have nobody, right? Because like you look at Escape from Tarkov, like there is a dedicated fan base that loves extraction shooters. There's no, real competition except for, Escape from Tarkov. So they'll probably be able to carve out enough people who stick with it long enough, and then they're early enough that it, when's the next extraction shooter really coming out? I mean, it will be interesting. I think the only thing that could completely screw them up is if Arc Raiders just ends up blowing up. If that blows up, then that would suck for them.
Well, that's another funny, interesting thing is EA just had Respawn working on a extraction shooter in the Titanfall universe, and they just fired 300 to 400 people, and they canceled their extraction
Crazy,
shooter.
Man. Crazy.
So that could have been competition there, and then,
God, I mean, that one I actually heard. I forgot about that. But, I mean, I love Titanfall 2. I really do. And I think it's so sad what happened to Titanfall. Like, the original one was an Xbox exclusive. Really, that could have been, like, the next big game. Could you imagine if we were alternating between Halo, Gears, and Titanfall?
I know.
Like, oh man, and that would have slotted in perfect with the repertoire.
And funny enough, we talked about earlier about releasing Clair Obscur and Oblivion. Remember when they released Titanfall 2 and Battlefield 1 at the same time?
You know,
How
I'm
dumb.
so happy you brought that up because when they announced those two going out, that was one of the things I thought about. I was like, oh my god, I hope this is not a Battlefield moment and a
Yeah.
Titanfall moment. But I don't know why nobody really paid attention to Titanfall 2. They are kind of different games, but I guess they.
It was such a young studio that was their first output when they joined EA.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But and the thing is, the game was really good. It's just, man, like, I guess it's the same type of gamer who's interested in both, but maybe it's not the same type of gamer who's interested in both Clair and Oblivion.
Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe.
Maybe it's more the nostalgia heads who are playing Oblivion Remastered, and Clair is more a game for people who like JRPGs.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe there was like a separate. Yeah, that was hard to say. Honestly can't even justify why. Like, because like imagine you're someone with inflation now, because back then it was different. You only have enough money to buy one of those two games, Oblivion or Clair, and then you go, I'm getting both, or there's enough people to say I want.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
I don't
that's
know.
a tough one.
It just still blows my mind that Titanfall 2 did as terrible as it
Mhm.
did. I mean, I guess back then, like, Call of Duty was also a juggernaut, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it still is, but back then, really, like, everyone was just buying copies of games, right? Like, they weren't playing Warzone, so.
Well, funny enough, both IPs have essentially died, but guess what? They're bringing back Battlefield. Out of the two, they decided to bring back Battlefield. Like,
well, I think Battlefield is definitely the more popular one, right? Like, it's had way more
Sure.
releases.
Sure.
I think there's a more dedicated, larger fan base,
But you bring that back, you're definitely competing against COD. That's a conscious decision.
Oh yeah, I think that's always been their answer to Call of Duty, but I guess for me it's just so sad. It's like they never let Titanfall just have a chance. Every time they just kill it at the knees, man.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
And it's like they didn't let Titanfall 3 happen, and then Apex happened, which was kind of, stealing some of the things from Titanfall. And now, like, a Titanfall extraction shooter could have actually potentially been good.
Yeah, I think so. I think you could have. They've already, like, with Apex, it's basically like taking Apex and probably like altering it a bit. I think Apex, like when I played it at the time, it was unique. It was interesting. It just wasn't my type of game.
I mean, I'm not into battle royales, but I feel like out of the ones I played, Apex was one of the ones that I enjoyed more.
Yeah, exactly. So like, if they put a twist onto that and made an extraction, I'm like, I could have seen it. And again, in the Titanfall universe, interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, another game to talk about, because we've been talking about Destiny and games similar to it, is Borderlands 4. So they PlayStation just recently had a deep dive on it. They did a dedicated state of play. They also posted the deep dive on the was it not the Epic, but Gearbox channel on YouTube. It was about 20 minutes long. I found it interesting. Again, the funniest thing about Borderlands is the cover art is always so unique. So I don't know if you've seen the new cover
I have
art.
not, no.
It's one of the the characters with the mask. They're hanging by like a chain, and it's like all red, and it's like, man, the cover is always so good in some way. The last one was like one that looked like Jesus, and then the one before that was like really funny too. So it was just like, I don't know. I always like the cover art. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I was just looking it up. That is interesting.
Yeah. So that was interesting. I would say the one concern I had from watching the deep dive is the performance didn't look good, and they're talking about how they're pulling up the game ahead of time, 2 weeks. So originally it was September 23rd, now they're pulling up to September 12th, and Randy Pitchford basically said that it's based on like the team just being very confident in the game. So performance didn't look well.
If the game is complete and they just have to optimize it for like frame rate and stuff like that, then they could potentially get it done in that time.
That's possible. Well, the one thing I did like is the UI seemed very overhauled. I just beat Borderlands 3, so I can probably make some comparisons. The biggest complaint was Borderlands 3 had the drop rates for legendary guns. It was just too often. Like, you could find them so easily to the point where they became useless in a sense. Like, I beat the game because I found so many legendaries at the beginning of the game. I just slaughtered everything. So it wasn't really a challenge. They said they're definitely working on that. So I think if based on what they said in the video, it sounds like Borderlands 4 is going to be a true successor to 2 in the sense that they're adjusting drop rates. They're giving people more of what they want. So verticality and movement. They've changed it in a way such that it kind of feels like Destiny now. You can literally glide, you can dash, you can what else? There was another type of movement. It was all similar to Destiny.
So that's why I'm happy you brought it up, because confession, I had no intention of watching the Borderland 4 video, right? And now that we're doing this podcast, I was like, okay, I know Arjun's going to want to talk about this for sure. And I was like, okay, I should probably watch the video, but I had no expectation. I'm not even exaggerating. I had zero interest in buying Borderlands this year. You made me buy Borderlands 3. I never played it. Then I resold it. I don't think I ever even took it out of the wrapping. And it's because, like, I don't know. When I was younger, I tried, like, Borderlands at my buddy's house, and I just, for whatever reason, I couldn't get into it. But man, when I saw that, deep dive of Borderlands, I was like, man, am I just an idiot? Like, did I just miss Borderlands this whole time and not realize that it's actually something that totally is my niche, like something I would
Yeah.
love? And when I got done watching it, I was like, bro, like this is what Destiny should be. This
Yes.
is what I've always wanted Destiny to be. And I just felt like it was an absolute slam dunk. And again, maybe it's because I had such low expectations. That's why I was just so blown away. But I was like, okay, combat looks amazing.
Yeah.
The fact that they have unique legendaries, that's
Yes.
awesome. They look like they're fun to use. You have a bunch of different people that you can be, and they actually have really fascinating abilities.
Yeah.
They have like an RPG like tree
Yeah.
that can like significantly change the way you play your character. And I was like, that's insane. Co-op, okay. And
Yeah.
then the one thing that I was curious about, I was like, okay, the premise is interesting. Is the story going to deliver? Because I just feel like a lot of games, the story just has not delivered the same. But overall, like it went from something that I had 0% interest in buying and playing, and now, you know, I might actually buy it. I think I'm still. It's one of those things where it's like I want to see what the reviews look like
Yeah.
because it's not a game that has always caught my attention. So I don't
Sure.
want to run out and buy it and then get disappointed. But man, I just felt like that is how you present a game.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, I wish other developers learned from this. Like, this is how you show off your game.
Yeah. 100%. Like to me, Destiny always felt like a half measure. Like the gameplay was very tight, the experience was tight, but the story was
Oh,
told through
terrible.
the
And
grimoire
the grinding?
and the
Oh my
grinding.
god.
With Borderlands, you have a true RPG system, right? And on top of that, the story, even though some people complain about like three's story, like all of them had a very great, unique story from start to end. Like it was good enough that it's like I'm experiencing like a whole like movie or like a whole arc, and these characters are growing, and you're like, okay, like I see it. Even when I played Borderlands 3, for the most part, I really enjoyed the story, and it took me like 30 hours for the main path without doing any side mission.
I'll be honest, like when you were telling me, yeah, I'm getting back into Borderlands 3, I'm gonna play it, I'm like, what is wrong with this guy? I'm like, he hasn't played freaking Last of Us. We're harassing him to play Hi-Fi Rush. What is this guy doing? Why is he playing Borderlands 3? So, maybe I'll try out Borderlands 4 and then I'll be like, okay, now I get it. Now I see why it's so famous.
Well, let me say this: there's a reason why they try to make a movie off of Borderlands,
Yeah,
right?
it's a very popular, successful,
Yeah.
beloved franchise.
Yeah, and I'll say this: like, I know this game from a gameplay perspective is going to be good because they're going to take what didn't work in 3 and improve that, and what did work good in 2 and improve that. The question now is how will the story be? And I think I'm confident that the gameplay is going to be very good.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that. What I'm curious about is just story, and even at its core, if the story isn't the best, it's still going to be a great game overall.
And I really think it's going to be a slam dunk. I mean, we'll see. I said 870,000 people for marathon, so I don't always have the best predictions. But you know, I mean, now that Destiny is fading away, like, what is Borderlands competition?
Exactly,
You
nothing.
know,
And the funny thing is, every Borderlands game has sold at minimum 10 million units, at minimum. So I think from a franchise perspective, they've sold over 40 to 50 million in total for the 4 games, and that averages out to 10 million
Yeah.
per. But they've also announced that too. Like that's been their biggest moneymaker, and the fact that Take Two then bought Gearbox from
Yeah.
what was the Embracer tells you that they saw the potential in it too. So I'm not too worried. The one thing I'm curious about is they didn't announce a release date for the Switch 2. So they announced that it's coming to the Switch 2, but it's not coming out day and date. And I'm also
Borderlands 4.
Borderlands 4. And I'm wondering, like, should I wait to get it on the Switch 2 or not? Because
Well, it's cross-play, right?
it's cross-play, cross-progression. And the cool thing was I played Borderlands 3 portably on the ROG Ally. And so I'm like, I love that, but it's not going to look as good on the Switch 2.
No.
So I'm
I mean,
contemplating
for
that.
me, it might be different because it's a shooter and you want it to be precise, but honestly, my preferred way to play nowadays, I just buy it on my Xbox,
Yeah.
and then I can, play on my big TV, and then with my ROG Ally, like I can just easily stream to it,
That's
and
true.
it's pretty good. I'm streaming at home, so the connection is pretty good. There is some lag, but it's not terrible.
Yeah, especially
And
if
I'd
it's-
rather not do it on the PlayStation because I just think it's beyond stupid for me to have to buy another
Yeah.
PlayStation Portable for the sole reason that PlayStation is making their streaming app really shitty.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
their app is
and
just
the Xbox streaming app just works. You
yeah,
know,
exactly. And again, they always it's so funny because the streaming app on Game Pass says beta like whenever
yeah.
you do stream, but it's like it's so good. It's like
Yeah,
dude, you
it
don't
works
need
just
it.
fine. So that's probably how I'll buy it and play it. But I mean, honestly, I feel like if you even just got it on Steam, that's not a bad way at all
Yeah,
to play.
it's not. It's not. And I like that again. This game is a 4-player co-op game. How many
And it's
looter
split screen.
shooters and it's split screen, 2-player split screen. So again, I'm excited, and I love that I actually beat Borderlands this year. I know it took me 7 years to play that game, but like I'm actually happy that I finished it this year. Because had I not, I think with all that time elapsed, I don't know if I would have got back into Borderlands.
Yeah. So I guess I mean, getting back to one of the things we were talking about earlier, Grand Theft Auto 6, right? So you know, honestly, I feel like Take Two. We were already thinking, all right, you already have enough releasing this year. Like, do you really need Grand Theft Auto 6?
Right.
I guess this does give Borderlands 4 and Mafia some more time to breathe,
Yeah.
right?
I think that it's needed. Like, had they pulled up Borderlands, but then they go a month from that, they go, oh, here's GTA 6. Regardless of if they're the same genre or not, it would have been drowned out. And
Yeah.
I think this was smart for them to do
And the
that.
thing is with Grand Theft Auto, like I feel like Grand Theft Auto 5 was so polished, and because of that, the expectations are so high for Grand Theft Auto 6. Not only do you have to, wow us by taking us farther than Grand Theft Auto 5, but the level of polish in those games or like Red Dead Redemption is so high,
Yeah.
like you can't release a half-baked game.
You can't. Like, and my expectations are high. I played Red Dead 2 years, I think, after it launched. And oh my god, even though it was at 30 FPS, like the game looked
so good, right?
beautiful. And the story was so engrossing. I was so attached to that game. And I only played the game like 2 hours at a time, like from week to week. But my god, I felt like I was watching a movie every time I played that game. And this, like,
I never beat that game.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, I just couldn't get over the fact I was in the icy area, and I finally got past it.
That's a
Yeah, I don't know. I think I maybe. I don't know.
So
I don't know why I couldn't beat it. I think it was just moving kind of slow in the beginning.
So the beginning is slow, but once you get past it and you get into the town and stuff, man, just like every mission was just so like I don't know, amazing and out of this world. Like they put so much thought and care into the writing and the characters. And then they tie it around to the first Red Dead game. So I have so many high expectations on GTA 6 that they'll find ways to tie it to some of the older games. The exploration will be more dense.
Yeah.
The AI will be better, and then you're just going to have this game that you could probably sink hundreds of hours into because GTA 5 was like that. And I wonder how the multiplayer is going to be because that was a big component.
GTA Online is still so successful, right? Like, I wonder what they're going to do. Or do you think GTA 6 launches with no multiplayer?
I think
so. And then they just release more expansions for GTA Online?
I think so. I think they release without a dedicated multiplayer component, but I don't think they'll release more for 5's multiplayer. I think they'll just like
call it like a GTA Online 2.
Yeah, and then they'll say this is like a 2.0 update, and then this includes GTA 6 content. But yeah, I don't foresee it launching with multiplayer.
But what did you think of the trailer for GTA 6?
Interesting. Like it didn't give us much more than the first trailer. I'll be honest with you. It's just like, hey, clearly something has gone wrong. We did some heist, and it didn't go as planned, and now we just need to redeem ourselves. But by redeeming ourselves, we find out there's like much larger crimes going on within the city. So it sounds basic, but it's going to be...
I mean, I don't know about you, but I wasn't expecting as much of like the romance element. Like, I felt like it was kind of like Bonnie and Clyde,
Yeah, it does feel
which
like
I'm okay with. I actually, after I was done watching that, I was like, oh man, I feel like the internet is just going to find something to complain about and go crazy with this. But they didn't. Maybe it's because, they made sure everything was thick and juicy, so people wouldn't complain online.
There's some thick and juicy shots in that bitch. Like, you know what I'm saying?
No, I think that's an interesting pivot for them, though. Like, when I think of the other games, like, it was just, like, a bunch of dudes, and then, and older dudes, too. And, like, now they have their first female protagonist, and it's, like, a Bonnie and Clyde type of story, it seems like. And, that's kind of an interesting pivot.
Yeah, I mean, definitely all the games, there was always a love interest, but they just weren't the main point or focus. So now that the fact that they do have two, and you'll probably get to play as both, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Not just one, I don't know. But again, not like it doesn't really excite me. It's just what excites me more is how dense the game looks.
Yeah.
Again,
I agree. Like I think it's interesting. I mean, I was a little nervous because is this kind of a cliche story? Like, hasn't this been done a lot? But I think Rockstar definitely they've had so many successes, right? And they've been so good for so long. Like, I'm not going to question them. And I was just blown away by the world, just the graphics, the
graphics are so insane. I think again, I've never played a GTA game actually, like from start to end, and this is the first one that I will. And I bought GTA 5. I've been wanting to play it, but I think I'm just gonna wait for
You know
the.
what's so funny? The only GTA games that I've actually finished the main story are the PSP games.
That's funny.
I've beat all of their stories. I never beat the story for GTA 4 and 5. And I think it's just because like that is actually one game where I get very distracted in and then I'll
Yeah.
just end up causing mayhem.
Yeah, exactly. You get caught by the cops, etc.
Yeah.
You punch a hoe or something.
Oh my god.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. So Borderlands now gets some breathing room, and so does Mafia. So we'll see how that goes. But another game that's going to get some breathing room that we haven't talked about is Ghost of Yotei. They announced a release date. I think it was October 4th.
Yeah. I think I was messaging you right after I saw that trailer and I was like, why couldn't they have just included this in one of the showcases?
Yeah, that was
Like
it
I
was a
think
blog post.
right? I think they wanted to give enough room to breathe for some of their other stuff, but
But what?
it's like
Well, because
why?
when is Death Stranding 2 coming out?
It's coming out in July, June, something like that. But I mean, I understand like when they had that trailer for Saros or whatever,
Yeah.
they wanted that to be like the drop the mic moment. Let's give it all the attention, and I guess they did succeed in that because that's what everyone was talking about. But honestly, like if they had just included Ghosts of Yotai in that showcase, would it have actually hurt Saros? I don't think
No,
so
not at all.
because the news cycle for that game hasn't even started,
Yeah, it hasn't
and the
started.
hype would have built up anyways for that game. So I think
And-
that was a weird decision on why you didn't include on your showcases and just randomly drop it in a blog post.
Well, yeah. So I'm just googling this. Like Death Stranding 2 comes out June
June
26th.
26th, yeah.
I feel like now that the fact that they dropped this through a blog post on PlayStation Blog, they're not going to do a summer showcase. And they go, if that is indicative of that, again, another year where we don't really know what Sony is working on for up to games up till past this year, and it's disappointing because, like, dude, like, yeah, Ghost of Yotei looks interesting, Death Stranding looks interesting, but I just want to know, like, you've shown me Wolverine 4 years ago. I literally have no idea what.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, is Wolverine something that can honestly just randomly get dropped in like November? Like, what is going on with that game?
That plus again, we know Star Wars is they're going to show more gameplay of, but like I don't like that they're doing blog post drops. This is not a game that you just say here's a blog post about. And if you want to get more attention to it, like do a small state of
maybe
play.
they just think that it's such a beloved game, like Oblivion Remastered. Who cares? The internet has been waiting all day anyways. We'll let them advertise for us. But I just don't get it because then they spend all this time advertising other things when you have bangers that everyone's asking about. Like, it's just strange.
Well, you also just had Days Gone Remaster release a week ago, and or 2 weeks ago, no one's talking about it. So that could have been part of this show.
And that game got buried by Oblivion.
Yeah, like,
that's so sad.
It's like, dude, like I don't know. I just hope Sony does come out in a month and says, "Oh, we are doing another state of play. It's a 40-minute thing, and we have a couple more games."
I feel like they will. I mean, they randomly. Astrobot was just chilling and nobody knew about it. And then all of a sudden, boom, here you go, showcase, and Astrobot's coming out in a few months.
Well, again, even if there's no other games coming out this fall, it's fine. But show me updates on games that you've previously hinted about or talked about.
I kind of get the feeling that Sony was not going to do anything Ghost of Yotei related. And I think the original plan was let's just talk about Death Stranding 2. Again, this is my speculation, maybe because I'm an Xbox fanboy. And I feel like Sony felt the narrative was switching away from them too much. Yeah. Everyone was talking about Switch 2 and Xbox, and they were like, okay, we need to remind people that we are Sony, But I have the set feeling that they were probably always planning on like announcing this like right after Death Stranding 2 or like right before, and they were going to really wait until the summer to even say anything about this game.
Yes, yeah. I mean, they're basically announcing this 5 months before it comes out. I'm assuming they'll have.
Like Astrobot, wasn't that like literally like 3 months?
Yeah, I think it was like 3. This game, they'll definitely do a state of play to show more combat and like a 15-minute thing. I bet you, like in September.
I hope so, yeah.
Or August. Which again doesn't then help us much with a summer showcase because if they don't do it in June, then they're probably not going to do it.
Yeah, so I mean, we're basically just waiting until 2026 to see what Sony's cooking, and I imagine, 2026 hopefully it'll be like a really banger year because you're going to get Wolverine. I feel like for sure.
I don't know. There's been rumors that the game's already been rebooted a little bit because they've already had multiple directors leave or a director leave and be over creative differences. I don't know. Then I honestly don't know.
And I was just thinking about it, like. It's actually even been a very long time since Horizon came out.
Yeah.
Forbidden West. Like, that feels like it was yesterday, but hasn't it almost been like 3-4 years?
3 or 4 years, yeah, 2020. No, that 2020 as well.
I
Right?
thought it was 2021, but
Yeah, so there's those. I mean, and there's another topic that I want to talk about, and maybe again, it doesn't pivot the best into this, but like we just found out about some Xbox prototypes coming out, like with Asus.
yeah, did you see the picture?
Yeah, I saw the picture.
What did you think about
I
that?
like kind of ugly.
I
Like,
thought it was terrible looking. I felt like it was some Frankenstein thing. Like, someone was in their lab and they just took a scalpel and
yeah,
they just
and they
like
just
cut out
carved
the
it
head.
out.
Yeah.
Like, so I think Computex is a conference that happens every year in the end of May. So they could announce it then and say it's coming out in a couple months. They did show, based on the prototypes, you can see there's clearly a button for the Xbox
Yeah.
button, right? And I guess with the FCC leaks, I think it's going to have the Z2 Extreme version have 64 gigs of RAM, which is insane.
Why would you even need that much RAM though?
Yeah, and with a 36-watt TDP, I'm like, dang, this is insane.
Well, I wonder if what they're doing is, system on a chip or whatever, like the M4 and stuff like that. Like, what if they're, because didn't AMD just release their first like real system on a chip where everything was integrated, and they put it in that tablet, and that tablet's like crazy powerful.
So they're gonna have two versions. So the second version of this prototype is gonna have an AMD Aerith, which is a little weaker. So yeah, they probably are doing like an APU on a sock, but I don't know. It's just like, I would only be interested in this. Okay, the Z2 Extreme seems very interesting, but what I'm really curious about is this: if this is going to be an Xbox OS designed specifically for it. If they still do the same Windows PC shit, honestly, I am not going to get this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm going to get it because I already have an ROG Ally, and
yeah, it's perfectly
is
fine.
it really worth it for me? Because the thing is, how much better can it be? Because it's not like it's going to be more powerful than the Series X or Series S, right?
No, but like,
and so and then really, how much better is it going to be than ROG Ally?
It will be. It'll be significantly stronger because of the Z2 Extreme CPU, but and the lot more RAM. But the thing is, if you can't allow me to resume and put a game to sleep, then I don't
What's
care.
the point? Yeah.
Like,
I guess the point I was trying to get across, like, with the scalability that games have to have nowadays with Steam Deck and Series S, like, I find it hard to believe that future Xbox first-party releases are not going to run on the ROG Ally, right? So what I'm getting for upgrading is better graphics, but not better than my console.
Yeah.
And better battery life, maybe?
Maybe, or
Who
just about
knows?
the same.
Just about the same. So, and for me, if the price wasn't crazy, I would consider it.
Yeah, but it's going to be like a $900 or $1,000.
No way. It's going to be crazy expensive.
It's going to be like $1,000. I 100% guarantee it.
And so, and I think this is going to be like that niche thing, like, how real Surface fanboys were getting that, Surface Duo?
Yeah, Surface Duo, yeah.
I feel like this is meant to be more of like a, kind of a showpiece, than really a practical device that's going to sell a lot, right?
Exactly.
Because to me, that's going to be the true Xbox handheld. I feel like this is an in-between learning device because I feel like it's low-hanging fruit, a rebranded Asus ROG. Instead of making ROG 2, let's just make it an ROG Xbox, basically.
Yeah. Well, again, if this should be a learning experience for Xbox or Microsoft. If you can perfect your OS on a PC-like application or hardware, then you know what you need to do going forward and how to streamline that on PCs. Because if you just noticed this, I forgot which game was just released. They said releasing on Series X, Series S, and Xbox PC. They're rebranding it. Instead of saying Windows PC now, they're calling it Xbox PC. So I found that very interesting. So I feel like maybe at the end of this year, they're going to be like, yeah, we're not calling everything Xbox PC because we have a new OS. You can now put this on multiple pieces of hardware machine. Maybe you can put it on the Steam Deck. Who knows?
I never even thought about it. But what if they actually rebrand into Windows PC and Xbox PC?
Yeah.
Right? Like, if that's what you're kind of implying. Yeah. Like, and then the Windows PC is running on like a certain type of OS. Yeah. And then it's not that the Xbox PC is running on a reskin of Windows, right? It's like a substantially different enough Windows that it actually does what it needs to do. That could be fascinating. Yeah. That really could. And honestly, I don't think people would care that much about like the crazy amount of cross-compatibility with apps, because it's not like everyone wants OneDrive running on their ROG Ally, right? And so that's the problem Microsoft has with Windows, because they can't change it too much because all the legacy stuff has to work for their business clients, right?
But if you strip it out and streamline it and say, hey, you convinced me to buy $1,000 mid-range PC just to play games, You know what? Great. I would actually consider
I mean,
that.
that's an ask. I never thought about that, but that might be a fascinating idea because, like, and I think that's kind of me as well. People who would want to buy pre-built gaming PCs and
Yeah.
stuff like that, they're like a little hesitant to just build it all yourself. So people who are more enthusiasts can do that with
Yeah.
like your Windows PC software, and
Yeah.
then other people can just basically get an Xbox PC,
Yeah.
right?
And you connect it to your TV.
Oh my god!
And then you just play Indiana Jones at like high settings, and
Yeah.
you just it looks good.
Oh my god, Arjun, they should hire you at Xbox. I can actually see that as a merging of everything they're trying to do that makes sense. And the
Yeah.
Xbox PC could be either a console, or it could be a tower, or it could be a handheld.
Exactly.
Oh,
So I think we're gonna hear some interesting news by either the summer for their summer showcase or end of.
so, all right. And then I guess, like, since we've been talking about price hikes, how do you feel about the fact that games are now maybe going to $80?
I mean, it's like I said, if they go with a variable approach, I'm okay with that because it all depends on the value being provided, and I think that's what they'll do. Games $80 now, like adjusted with inflation, was probably 60 to 70 a couple years.
I mean,
ago.
it's keeping in line with inflation.
Yeah,
and I get that argument because, I mean, again, if we're spending like $15 at a movie theater,
yeah,
right? Like, I get it, right? When you look at how many hours you're playing, and I think for a long time we were able to hold steady at like the $60 game because. And then the 70, because a lot of times like they would just start making deluxe editions and stuff like that, and that would kind of like fill that niche, right?
Yeah.
But I thought this was inevitable. I do think Clair Obscur is kind of a one-off. Like, it shows that there is a possibility to make lower priced games that feel like AAA games.
Yeah.
There is absolutely that possibility, but the thing is, game development to me is kind of bloated, and I think Clair Obscur had a very clear vision of what they wanted, right? And it just worked. And, there's always going to be people who have that clear vision from the get-go. But I think in any creative project, there's a certain amount of chaos and turnover that's kind of built into budgets, And if you know exactly what you're doing and you hit the ground running, then I think you end up with a game like Clair Obscur.
Well, what's that one game that you like, the Pinocchio game, the
Liza P.
The studio that made that, it's like, look, think about this. You sold 2 million copies of Clair Obscur plus Game Pass, the bag. So you've already made like 80 million plus a couple more million. Let's say you're at 100 million, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And the game cost maybe 50 to 60 million. Let's just say. I'm afraid that
you're in a good place.
Yeah, you're in a good place, but I hope they don't get enough pressure. Like, all right, you got to make a sequel. Like, maybe make an expansion if you can have some time. Then think about if you.
Well, that's what happens, right? Because like, just because you had one great idea, it doesn't necessarily mean that every idea is going to be great. Yeah. And like, if this was created by like the original idea was like a very passionate person, and this idea was percolating in their mind, for a long time. Now that they got it out there, like, is there other things that are percolating in their mind? Maybe not. Sometimes people are one hit wonders.
They could pivot and then do something different.
Like, I think I was listening to the guy, is it David Jaffe, the guy who made God of War, and he was saying that like, I had to step away from like game development because I realized that I could no longer tell the difference between which of my ideas was God of War and which of my ideas was going to be a game that would not be successful at all.
Yeah,
right?
That's understandable. He probably had thought about that because he had worked on it for like 20 years or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You're so engrossed in that, that you're like, how do I pivot? And the games he did pivot from that he made were all horrible.
Yeah, and I think that's what his point. He's like, I legitimately cannot tell the difference because I think every single one of these is going to be God of War, and then they're not.
So here's the thing. He helped make Twisted Metal, which was a decent game, but then the game after that, what was that one, Drawn to Life or Drawn to Death?
Yeah.
That was horrible.
I think that's what he was talking about because like to him, it felt like it was going to be an absolute banger idea,
that's what he said.
It just wasn't beloved in the same way. So I think we say that because we just kind of assume like this is how creativity works. You have one great idea, you are just creative genius, and you're going to just keep putting all these ideas together. So, I mean, I am happy the studio got to do Clair Obscur. I am excited to see what comes next, but you never know.
Pressure.
You never know, and it is a lot of pressure. And I think that's what happens. That's a news cycle with a lot of these studios. Like they end up being like everyone's underdog, hometown hero, and then they get super famous, and then everyone's like, oh, now they're overhyped. And eventually, they're the villains, right?
Yeah, I'm okay with the idea of that especially if you're a new studio, take what you just made, which was great, and expand on it and change it up and change up the formula a little bit so that you have expansion sequels that are, hey, I really innovated. You don't have to go in a completely different direction. But with Sony, because they've been making some of these IPs and franchises for 20 years, I am sick of the same stream making Last of Us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make me goddamn different games.
Although I was going to text you this, and I know you didn't want to talk too much about Last of Us, the TV show, because you want to wait until we're farther along so we can kind of analyze the whole season. But man, I remember watching the show with the wife, and the wife was like asking me all these questions, like, hey, like, why does this happen? Why does that happen? What happens next? All this stuff. And I was like, man, I kind of want to play Last of Us 2 again. And then I was like, dude, what is wrong with me? Oh, God. Am I going to be the guy who buys this game again?
Yeah, you are. You're going to be that one guy.
All right. Let's see. Any other things you want to talk about, or you want to just talk about what we're going to probably play or watch going forward?
Yeah, just talk about what we're going to play and watch going forward. Honestly, like going forward, I'm going to finish. I started watching You season 5.
Which I really want to talk about with you, but you got to friggin' finish it.
I will. I'm on episode 3. There's only 8 or 9 episodes, but it seems interesting. Okay. It's the end of it. I'm curious to know what twist. There's definitely going to be a twist because the way they set up this character is always like, hey, you try to become good, you have a troubled past, and don't worry, you can redeem yourself. And psych. No.
I think there's a lot for us to talk about with that show when it comes out because, I talked about it a lot with my wife, like after we got done. Yeah. So,
I like the fact that in season 4, he did definitely have this identity struggle where he's like, I thought I could change and be different and be a good person. And his other side of his personality just took over. He's like, no, I just can't. And like, I would be curious to know how he thinks he redeems himself because I think at the end of the day, he will die in some sense and someone's going to get on to finally.
We know it's the end of the series, right? So they have to have some sort of definitive ending. Yeah. So I'll let you catch up. We binged it. And so, I don't think this is spoilers, but I think in the beginning, we liked it. I was really watching every episode. The middle, I think some things were just bonkers, ridiculous, and I think that's why I got really bad reviews on a lot of websites. So then we started fast forwarding through some of it, and then I actually thought it ended I actually like the ending. So I'll just say that much. I like the ending. So I really want to get your thoughts on it when you're done.
Sounds about right with the reviews mixed.
So, I don't know if there's any show I'm necessarily going to watch. I thought about getting back into Wheel of Time and finishing the season because it started off pretty well. But no, I don't think there's any shows really. I think I'm really going to just be writing more. Maybe I'll game some. I'm going to play some more Clair Obscur. I don't know if I'm going to get into Doom yet because I really want to set aside some good time for that. And the last thing I was going to talk about, and this just shows you my fanboy self, I was watching the new trailer for Halo Infinite, and man, this is the first time in like 2 years I actually thought about re-downloading and playing because the new weapon actually seems really fun.
Like, Delulu over here.
The new weapon, okay, you got to hear about this. It's a double barrel shotgun, right? So it's like they brought back the original shotgun. Has your normal fire, which is 1 bullet, and alt fire, you shoot both of them. But the melee is basically a gravity hammer.
Interesting.
And so it looks really fun to use. It's like the first true new weapon we've had in a while. They still are going strong with all their Forge content. For me, I've played so much Halo in my life and so much Halo Infinite. Like, I'm not joking. I've probably put like 200-300 hours in that game. I think outside of Halo 3, my most played game ever is Halo Infinite and then Destiny 2. So I'm probably not going to re-download it. If it was already downloaded on my Xbox, I would probably log in and play. But right now, I'm like, ugh, do I really want to download 100 gigs and then just to delete it a few weeks later? Yeah. But I don't know, maybe I'll dabble into it. That looked kind of interesting.
Okay, that's interesting. For me, I have like 100 shows on my backlog. So I think what I'm going to focus on is after You, I'm probably going to watch another season of Goosebumps that came out in 2023 on Disney+, then watch Star Wars Andor, season 1 and 2. And then maybe Arcane. I still haven't watched season 1 and 2, but that's just for
so many stuff.
I still have like 90 other shows.
If you wanted my opinion, I would tell you scrap all that and watch Invincible. But whatever that's you think interests you the most, because I like that show the most.
I'm gonna eventually watch it. I have literally 100 shows on my backlog.
I just feel like, from your taste, knowing your taste, like probably those shows you mentioned are really good options. I think you're gonna like all of them. I think the objective best show out of all of those is probably this first season of Arcane. But my favorite is probably Invincible.
I'll watch that too.
It's a silly show. It's a dumb show at times, but man, it's a great show.
I'm going to get to it for sure. I would say this. There's a movie that just came on Netflix called The Match. It's with that really famous Korean actor from Cobra Kai that plays the white ninja. What's his name? Young, the
No
guy,
idea.
the guy that's in Squid Games. That's the dude with the black mask.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's a movie about Go. So for those that don't know, it's like a Japanese like it's almost like checkers in a sense. I don't know if anyone's ever played Go.
Wait, is that like Mahjong or?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
So this movie it came out today on Netflix. It's basically about he's a professional Go player. He trains this kid, and this kid eventually challenges him to a professional match. And he's like, "Oh, this my protege. He's still too young. He'll never beat me. He's like 10 years too early. But I'll entertain it. We get into a tournament. We end up versing each other. He ends up losing, and it breaks and shatters his whole life because he's like, how could my protege, who I think is still way too young and naive, beat me at my own game?" And then it's a journey about how he rediscovers himself and then ultimately ends up challenging his protege years later down the road to try to beat him again. So I've always been into Go because Hikaru no Go was one of my most favorite animes of all time. I love that anime. And the fact that this is one of my favorite actors, I'm definitely going to watch that this week too. So.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I'll look out for some reviews on that. I never even heard of it. So
it's called The Match. So. All right, that's all I got.
All right, take care, everybody.
Take care. See ya.